at the moment. So hello, welcome. And we are going to be talking about the soul urge number today in numerology. I kind of feel a little bit like Willy Wonka, who says, oh, so much time, so little to do. And then he says, wait, stop, reverse that. So today we have a lot to cover. And because the soul urge is one of those numbers that has a little bit more confusion around how to do the calculation. And so we're going to really dig into that, talk about that very directly. Urge. We're getting a little more complex, right, as we move into our webinars that are building on each other. I hope they are. So if you're new here, welcome. So happy to have you. You're kind of getting in here in more of an advanced way and level. And if you've been with me for a while now doing these monthly webinars, you can see the plan here, which is to build your knowledge as we go along to understand numerology and how it works together, right? So with that said, though, let's just launch right into it, because the soul urge number is taken from the vowels in your name. We're working also with Pythagorean numerology, just so you know that. And that is the type you're learning here on this webinar during this presentation. It comes from Pythagoras. So we're not learning Chaldean, other kinds of numerologies. We are focusing on Pythagorean. And what we're going to be working with very directly is the original name as it appears on your birth certificate, okay? And this also goes for, so just a brief disclaimer or claimer about that. It is the original birth name. If you're a junior, senior, a second, a third, that is not part of the calculation. And if you were adopted, say, and your original name on the birth certificate was Baby Girl Smith, that is the name you're going to use. Of course, you're going to use your adopted name that you have on the birth certificate after the fact. And yet that is the original name on your birth certificate. And if it was misspelled on your birth certificate, that is also the spelling that we use. Okay, so I know we're doing a little bit more of a deep dive, but I figure that's why you're here, right? To get a little bit more intimate with all of this stuff. So the vowels, okay, here's where it starts getting fun, because the vowels, pretty simple, right? It's A, E, I, O, or U. No problem, right? No worries there. And yet here's the caveat. Sometimes Y or sometimes W. All right, so now what does that mean? So of all the core numbers, this is the one that offers a few more issues in terms of the calculation. And so we'll kind of inform you about how that looks, okay? So if you know me, you know I love to look at different schools of thought. I love to give you that information about who I'm looking at, who I studied with, all of that. Dr. Juno Jordan, she is a numerologist, a famous numerologist. Great books. If you are into numerology, look her up. Amazing material there. And she and other numerologists will say that the Y never enters into the calculation, no matter what. Okay, that's that school of thought. Other numerologists will contend that the Y is always used in calculating the soul urge number, right? So the way that I look at this, to be very honest, it's like you're going to the doctor. You're going to the doctor and you have these symptoms, and you can go to 3 different doctors. You can have 3 different diagnoses, and you can have 3 different, remedies or prescriptions or suggestions for how to take care of it. So there is nothing in life that is just one thing only. We wish it were that way. All of us wish it, and yet it does not exist in any way, shape, or form, and it does not exist in numerology. So with that said, we're going to kind of school you about what the deciding factors are, and then go from there. So Hans Dekos, he's a master numerologist, and others will show you that the calculation rests on the Y being considered a vowel by the way it sounds. So it's not a matter of just if it shows up or not. It's okay, it shows up. Now what? Now what do we do with it? Now we're going to look and see how it sounds. And then we're going to place it into the context of, is this considered a vowel in this name, in this particular name, or is it considered a consonant? Because the energy of the Y is vacillating. It is more of a spiritual resonance. It actually is the number 7 in numerology. So it is that spiritually alive energy. And we can even feel it as we talk about it, right? In terms of the vowels. And if we think about the soul urge, that is the kind of whisper, right? rather than the personality number, which is just kind of upfront and out there, right? So really, numerology, after all, is all about vibration. It is about frequency. So if we think about it, it's not just words, right? It's not just blah, blah, blah. It actually is a frequency that carries with it this energy and this data and this information. And so when we start thinking about that in terms of how it shows up in the way our name sounds, the way that we pronounce it, all of that, it is about the sound. It's the vibration. It is that frequency. So discerning the sound that it brings to the specific name is very much a key to this formulation. All right. So this is a long quote, but I think it's so valuable to quote it. And I have to move my face around here. Sorry about that. I'm going to put it off in the corner here. So this comes from Hans Dekos, and he says that when I can't even see it from there we go. Sorry about that. You can't see things the way I'm seeing it on my screen, unfortunately. So, okay, here we go. When the letter serves as a vowel and in fact sounds like one, it is a vowel. So examples of both of these cases are such names as Lynn, Lynn, Lynn. It is a vowel. Yvonne, Mary, E, it sounds like E. It takes on that vowel sound. Betty, Eli, Bry, Ian, right? It sounds like a vowel. However, if the Y does not provide a separate vowel sound, as when it is coupled with another vowel, it's considered a consonant. In names such as Maloney or Murray, the Y is a consonant because the vowel sound depends upon the long E in Maloney and the long A in Murray, Murray. Again, you get to play with the verbal here. In general, the Y is a consonant when the syllable already has a vowel. Also, the Y is considered a consonant when it is used in the place of the soft J sound, as in the name Yolanda or Yoda. Okay. All right. We're not done yet. Hang with me here, because a numerology software program that I use quite frequently, it makes this statement when it asks me to manually determine if the Y is a consonant or a vowel. And so here's what it says. It says this Y is a vowel if it follows A, E, I, O, or U. Now let's just think about what I just read to you from Hans Dekos, who says when it's next to an A, E, I, O, or U, it's not considered a vowel, right? So it's like, oh my God, my head is exploding. So And, you know, and then it says, and sounds like one, as in Hayes, or there is no other vowel in the syllable, as in Kennedy, or it is pronounced as a vowel, as in Eves. Otherwise, it's a consonant. Okay, are you getting anxious yet? Because this has been one of the biggest issues personally that I've had as a numerologist, just attempting to determine what is the correct formulation here. How do I make this choice? Okay, here's the deal. Like everything else in life and in numerology, it is up to you to decide what's right. And what I do and do personally, and also suggest that you do, if the why is an issue. Let's do a little sidebar here. This is only perplexing if there is a Y in the name. If there's no Y in the name, no worries. You can come up with the soul urge without any problems, right? Without any challenges. And yet, if there is a Y or more than one Y, then you get to work this element or this avenue of thought. Okay. I always say, seriously, run it both ways and see what might feel right or in alignment. And then as you continue to do that, you will get more adept about how you think it shows up, you know, what school of thought that you really think is valid for you in terms of that. Again, if this is your name, you are the ultimate master or mistress of how you feel. You are driven down deep, right? From the urging of your soul. So by the way, I'm just going to also mention that I never consider the W a vowel, and yet some numerologists do. That I have seen certain software programs calculate the W as a vowel. So once again, you can even throw that into the fire of this mix with the vowels. Just know that when a name has a Y or multiple Y's, or a W or multiple W's, there's just a little bit more of that kind of spiritual, fluxy, diffusive energy about those people, about their character. Okay, so it's interesting to look at it that way as well. So in terms of doing this matrix, here's the framework of how to translate. So if you're here and you have your piece of paper, I would suggest really right now writing these down. I'll have suggestions I'll have reminders as we go along of these values. But these are the number values for each letter. Okay, so that is what we're going to be working with as we determine the soul urge number. So if you can make notes about that. Also, let's move forward, and I'll give you an example. How about that? So our example that we're using today is Millie Bobby Brown. She is a 9 life path. She was born on 2/19/2004. And for those of you who don't my European friends and other people who don't live in the United States, and you usually do the way that you write a birth date is with the day first, the month in the middle, and the year after that. You can still write it that way in terms of how you write it, but in terms of the calculation itself, we simply pull out the month first, the day second, and then the year third, just so you know. All right, so let's look at this. Let's look at Millie Bobby Brown. For those of you who don't know who she is L or 11 in Stranger Things, another wonderful numerology thing. Her name is 11. We could have an entire webinar about that. Right? So here is Elle, and the actress playing Elle. And here again, I'm reminding you of these letter values over here. I'm doing a little, squiggle with the blue, the bouncing blue ball there. And so what we do here is we take the first name, the middle name, and the last name. That's how we're going to divide it up. And what you also would benefit from knowing is in numerology land, we designate the vowels, the indicator of the vowels on when we're writing it down on the top of the name. If we were to put the consonants here as well, we would place those underneath the name so that we could just determine very visually where the vowels are and where the consonants are. It's just a visual thing, right? And so here we go. We've got Millie. We have 2 I's and an E. That's 23, and it reduces to a number 5. A middle name is Bobby. So we have an O, which is a vowel, and that Y I would consider a vowel. Bobby. It sounds like an E, Bobby. So that is considered a vowel in this context. That is a number 7, as I mentioned before. So that is a 13/4. So that is a 4. So here's the last name, the looks like a 0, but it's an O. The O is a 6. And think about it this way, though, just a little, well, I don't know, sidebar. The W here, let's say you considered, you wanted to see what the difference would be if it were considered a vowel. So if we look over here, the W is a 5, right? It is a 5. So if we added 5 here, that would be an 11. Imagine that. So an 11/2. So in that case, again, we'll come back to that in a second to see what it would determine for the final countdown here. And yet, let's see what without the W being considered a vowel, which I truly don't, me personally. But you can figure out what feels good to you or what feels right. So in this calculation, 5 + 4 + 6, that's 15. And that is a 6. So she has a 6 soul urge, wants to be that nurturing, home, family, everything. She's young enough now where we get to see how that plays out with her in her life, but very perfectionist, right? Has that kind of controlling aspect, and yet also extremely talented and gifted in terms of art, creative artistry. So that's very fitting for the 6. And yet let's once again, just as a fun experiment, let's add 5 to that, which would be the W if we were to add the W, and that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That would be an 11. So it would be an 11, a master number 11/2 soul urge for Millie Bobby Brown. So once again, if that were you, you would get to go, let me look up both the 6 and the 11/2 and see what feels more in alignment with me and who I feel I am. So overall, the soul urge, it indicates what you need in order to feel the most sense of gratification on a very deep soul level, right? That's why it's called the soul urge. It is the urging of your soul. And oftentimes I find this can be very much in simpatico, very in alignment with your life path number, right? So it feels like kind of smooth sailing. And then there are times when it's a little wonky, right? It's very diametrically opposed in some ways to your life path number. So there are maybe some arm wrestles there or a few alligators to wrestle in terms of your overall purpose in life, and then what's that underlying driver. We can talk about how that can show up as we go along. I like to make these a little bit more advanced in terms of how to start thinking about how that might work with your life path number. So this is that soul urge number. It is the point of your soul's most expansive growth in this lifetime. That is how I have come to see it within my practice of numerology. It's really where your soul is growing the most this time around. It is the underlying driver for everything you do. It is your deepest heart's desire. And it can be in numerology also called the heart's desire rather than the soul urge. I think that if you're here, you understand that there are different terms that mean the same thing, right? So the life path is also called the birth path. Other things in numerology, the soul urge is sometimes called the heart's desire. All right, now let's see how this shows up individually. I'm going to move myself over again. There we go. So if you have a one soul urge, you have this deep need to become number one at everything you do in your life. Your heart and soul, you are drawn to leadership, to independent action, and you are the innovator, right? That creative force field, that disruptor. And that is really what feeds your soul, wanting to be a leader, wanting to be that quirky individualist, right? And the opposing forces here, of course, there's always going to be the oppositional pull. And I always look at that as either the overactive elements or the underactive elements to that. So I just put a few suggestions here about how that might show up oppositionally. And it could be that you're lacking self-esteem or overly self-focused. So with that one soul urge, just like all of the soul urges, it's going to show up with the same defining qualities as if it were your life path, and yet we're applying it to what feeds your soul, and you're going to be dealing with the same issues, so to speak, or the same challenges, the same tendencies and obstacles that the one holds, and also have those skills, talents, and opportunities to really blossom, learn, and grow into the energy of the number. So in this case, really underlying need to step up and to be independent, to be individual, to do all of those things. So let's just give an example of, let's say you are, your life path number is, let's say your life path number is an 8. Ooh, this is a dynamic combination. I would say you'd be very driven to be financially successful, to be someone large and in charge in your career, right? The 8 brings management to it, and the 1 brings entrepreneurial spirit and talent to it. So interesting engagement, but 2 of the most dynamic business-related numbers. And yet, let's say you have a 1 soul urge and your life path is a 9. 2 kind of bookends there, right? That you get to be a leader, and yet in some sort of humanitarian, heartfelt service. So it's going to give you a really good indicator of what feeds your heart and soul on that level. I hope that makes sense. All right, let's look at the number 2. Let's say you have a 2 soul urge. You have a deep need to love, to be loved, to be in relationship, to bring harmony to discordant situations. Your heart really longs for peace and harmonious relationships across the board. With this 2 soul urge, highly intuitive, extremely emotionally sensitive, and really usually quite relationship slash kind of family oriented. So there can be that really underlying deep need to prioritize relationships and to be in very loving, harmonious relationships. Now, let's always remember, if that's what we're here to do, might be the most difficult thing for us to do. So there can often be relationship issues that are built in there. Sorry, don't shoot the messenger, right? Across the board. So some of the opposing forces for that 2, for a 2 soul urge, could be being overly sensitive, having kind of unruly or undisciplined emotions, attempting to really, really learn strong, healthy, emotional and psychic and energetic boundaries with that 2 soul urge. And then also learning to determine yourself from the inside out, I always find is a key feature for the number 2. And what does that mean, Felicia? That sounds kind of silly, doesn't it? What I mean by that is that the 2 is always looking for outside acknowledgement, looking to please, looking for, no conflict, all of those things. And yet that comes into play very much more fluidly when the 2 takes care of their own needs and understands who they are from the inside out in terms of who am I under all situations. I'm not going to shape shift to please others. Here is, and yet I'm doing it gently and diplomatically. Kind of soft and supple, and yet very strong, resilient boundaries. Again, overly sensitive can be one of those opposing forces there, or incredibly childish and combative. Right? Kind of, I'm going to strike out and hurt someone else before I get hurt. Because oftentimes with this 2 soul urge, you're again very sensitive, and you can be taken advantage of by other people pretty early and often until you figure out those boundaries. Okay, the 11 2. And for those of you maybe new here, the 11 is a master number. We look at it as kind of a double dose of 1 with that foundational energy of the 2. And so with this 11 2 soul urge, you have a deep need to heal and transform others through spiritual service. And often that's mixed up a little bit with some artistic creativity. Your heart longs for both loving relationships and success in the professional world. And so it's that really interesting dynamic balance. It's the yin yang, that power of the masculine, feminine, the double 1, which is more me oriented, all the I words, right? Independence, individuality, initiation. And yet the foundational energy here of this soul urge is that loving, caring, diplomatic, supportive, patient 2. So the opposing forces here are a little bit of narcissism, too much self-focus, or a little bit delusional, like too much head in the clouds, pie in the sky, having all of these ideas that never come to fruition, right? That never become grounded in reality. All right, let's move over to that 3. The 3 soul urge. The 3 soul urge is a very deep need to express, to create, to perform, to communicate in order to inspire, motivate, heal, and uplift other people. And you're doing that for yourself in the process. This is a deep need to heal, heal emotional trauma and move that into how your soul's work is to heal your trauma and express that pain and those feelings and express it out into the world and express it in a way that is meant to inspire, to uplift, to motivate other people. So it's not meant to be negative and pessimistic. It is meant to move people into the light, so to speak. And your heart longs for joy, for enjoyment, for fun, for buoyancy, for social connection, and for emotional expression. And usually with this soul urge, it is through communication on any, in any way, shape or form. And that could be through podcasting, through writing, through broadcasting, through acting, through all of those things, right? And that is a 3 thing. what I always say the mantra for the 3 is when you're laughing, you're learning. So this is a very, very core element of what feeds your soul. So the opposing forces are distorted expression. Again, that could be pessimism, cynicism, that sort of gossipy, negative expression. That can come, and again, it could be distorted in terms of everything is caustically positive. So you know, one way or the other, too much exaggeration, too much over expression in that way. So again, distorted expression, and this soul urge can bring you into kind of being shallow, superficial, kind of just skimming the surface, and rather than digging deeper into the crevices of your being to express in a really profound way. These people who have this soul urge have a very, when they're in their game, a very high emotional intelligence. Okay, so the 4 has a deep need to accomplish something tangible that people find beneficial in their day-to-day lives. The 4 is the number, it's kind of that teacher, that knowledge purveyor. They're the people who are the worker bees, the artisans. They get stuff done, and it's all about the accomplishment, all about results, all about the work that goes into that. Your heart longs for security, for stability, for accomplishment. Really, 4s usually are much more about inside the box. I want some predictability. I love routine. Family stuff comes up with this. Often if the 4 is a soul urge, creating the family of origin, or let me back up. Let me say that correctly. Creating the family of choice that is not the family of origin. That's what I'm trying to say, is that really creating the stability that you really want and need in your life, and you want to also give that to other people. So the opposing forces here can be irresponsible, because the 4 is the super responsible one. And so you can kind of, be irresponsible till you figure that out. And could be a workaholic on the other end of that, and being very work-oriented, very self-limiting, and very much about, here we go. Sorry, I'm admitting people. There we go. Apologies. So anyway, the irresponsible kind of work, or a workaholic, kind of one or the other, and can be very, again, the off track or the struggling 4 always feels exhausted, always feels like they are the only ones who can do X, Y, and Z, right? So it's learning how to relax, learning how to stay the course, but do it step by step by step by step. Okay, now we have that 22 4, that master number. So go back to the 2, right? Double that, and then put it there with that 4. So if you have a 22 4 soul urge, you have a deep need to become a masterful teacher and manifest inspired practical ideas. Your heart longs to be a teacher of teacher and leave something of lasting value in the world, kind of upping the ante in terms of spiritual evolution. However you define spiritual, it's just self-awareness, upper level thought, and this could be product, service, you just how you operate within your family. It can show up in all kinds of ways, but it's a driver, and the driver for that soul urge underneath, you really, really want to leave something, leave a legacy in the world, that you feel is a very special gift that you have been entrusted to give out, to manifest in this world. So the opposing forces here, there can be overly sensitive, right? That double 2, super sensitivity in terms of emotional sensitivity, and can be easily overwhelmed because the 4, again, it doesn't like chaos, right? Likes things that are predictable. And yet with this 22-4, you're always going to have a lot of balls in the air. Just telling you. So, and then it can be very self-limiting. The 4 itself is the number of limitation. So when that shows up anywhere in your chart, you're being asked to really work with that and work with limitations. 5. So you, as a 5 with this soul urge, you do have a deep need to affect change, to embrace freedom on every level, and to show people how to live their life to the fullest. So your heart longs to be this fearless flyer, this adventurous being, and to experience life to the maximum. So with this 5 kind of burning in your heart and soul, you are this catalytic person. You are often that very versatile agent of change. Again, fun, sexy, sensual, love to shake things up, right? Just the opposite of the 4. The 4, likes that predictability. The 5 is like, I want things, I want things to be a bit more exciting in life. And so if this shows up as your heart's desire, again, let's look at, what would happen if let's say you have a 6 life path and you have a 5 soul urge. I see this happen all the time. So you have this really interesting engagement with, your ultimate goal, as with your life path, is to be this kind of family-oriented home family, that duty, service, super responsible, all of those things. And yet underneath it all, you kind of want to be that wild child. So it's an interesting, again, element to start looking at the different parts of your chart and to see and to explain and validate maybe why you feel how you feel and how that shows up in different segments of your life, in different times of your life, different ages, different levels of maturity. So the opposing force here can be that that you can, feel or be very erratic, have difficulty following through on your promises, that sort of thing. Maybe difficulty committing to a relationship. And if you do, you're going to need some freedom within that agreement. And I don't mean necessarily sexual freedom or whatever, although that could show up that way, but just, not fencing you in. You have your sense of sovereignty, you have your sense of freedom in your life. And again, that would show up in however, what is priority to you in terms of your levels of freedom. And then it can show up as being incredibly fearful, because the opposite of the 5 is experiencing restrictions, confinements, feeling fearful, feeling not adventurous, feeling that sense that can tug at you. All right. So the 6 has a deep need to provide loving service and a nurturing environment for both yourself and your loved ones. You're the nester, right? Your heart longs to be of service. You really want to be of use. You want to nurture and give loving support to those you care about. This usually ripples out from your personal private life into what you do for work or for a living, or at least through your volunteer work or other aspects of your life, where it speaks to your heart and soul to be this very giving, bordering on self-sacrifice, but very, very creative, justice-oriented, visionary, and yet also very, very much about the home, the family, and the domestic relationship world. It has a similarity to the number 2, and yet it is very different. It has very different qualities, but that core element of relationship, family, as a priority for the 6 is really up there. It's kind of that cosmic parent is what it's often called, the number 6. So the opposing force here can be controlling, judgmental, overly self-sacrificing, and and again, in your heart, that's what's underneath it all. You want everyone to feel good. You want everyone to be nurtured and nourished. You want to be of use. You want to be supportive of people in your world. And so that is an underlying driver if you have a 6 soul urge. So that master number 33, think back on the 3. Again, that creative communication, all of those, joy, optimism, all of those characteristics. And then we're going to place that inside the context of the 6, which is that foundational energy here for you. So you have a deep, deep need to nurture, to heal, to inspire, and bring a loving and healing presence to everything you do. This can come as being kind of innately performance-based. It could be that double 3, or it can be very, very much in terms of caretaking and the ultimate caretaker in that way. The 33 is the number in numerology of unconditional love. So try that one on for size. If you have a 33 soul urge, you might be relieved to know that it's no little frolic overall. It's a lot of energy there. So your heart really longs to heal the world with positive expression and emotional healing. It's a lot to handle, basically, I find, the 33-6, and the pendulum can swing pretty dramatically there. It's as to how it shows up. So this can bring in some emotional volatility ×2, right? With the double 3s, always learning how to master the emotions. And it could be, could show up as somewhat self-destructive as well, oddly enough, I find, because of the perfectionism, that grinding sense of judgment and control. If that takes the lead, there can be some issues there. All right, the 7. The 7 has a deep need to intellectualize and analyze, and yet also has a need to develop trust and faith while seeking your own answer to the meaning of life. Your heart longs for solitude and for some space for reflection. It is really this internal soul-based. To have a 7 as a soul urge is kind of the ultimate soul urge, right? Even if we think about the 7, we've been talking about the 7 as a number 7 as the why, right? Even in the calculation of the soul urge. So it has a deep resonance there of spiritual functionality, for lack of a better term. It is slow, deep, and gradual evolution. Know thyself, really come to terms with the spiritual nature of self, of yourself in this lifetime. So the opposing forces here, it can be very materialistic or superficial. Again, when the 7 is avoiding the deeper dive, right? The deeper questions. What am I doing? What is life all about? Why are we here? How can I understand both the data, right? Very skeptical energy about I want, if we're all having a spiritual experience in this human body, prove it, show me the data, show me the spreadsheet is kind of how it can show up. And yet on that pinch, if you're not willing to do that, the 7 can really bring in a lot of superficial activity until you are ready to take that deeper look at things. It can also show up as being very reclusive, very antisocial. The 7 needs their space, needs the processing time, needs time to really digest things. And yet, again, when it's overactive on that end, it can be very antisocial and reclusive. All right, the 8. The 8 has a deep need to manifest financial security that allows you freedom and influence to make a difference in the world. This is calling to your soul. You have to do well in the world. You have to make enough money. You have to have this influence. It's pulling you. in that way. Your heart longs for personal empowerment, for respect, for becoming an authority, and for material wealth. So if you have an 8 in this position in your chart, that is maybe something that would be surprising to you if your other numbers are more like, more if you have a 7 life path, which is more spiritually activated in terms of wants and needs have to do with that internal contemplation. Well, if your soul urge is an 8, you're going to have to bridge heaven and earth with that, right? Because you've got both that you are working on manifesting, which is your personal journey as a 7, and yet part of that journey is going to be making your way, manifesting things, and doing well in terms of money and power and authority. So the opposing forces here are greed and arrogance. Again, the 8 is always wanting to prove itself, to be dominant, to again be have that power and empowerment. The 8 is known as the powerhouse number to me. And then on the other end of that pendulum, it could be very victimized, very much not stepping up and into that power, and being diminished and not doing well financially, and that being an issue, right? Where you're feeling very, very directly that you are not stepping up to your soul's task. And the 9. So with a 9 soul urge, you have a deep need to achieve a higher state of consciousness, to teach others how to give the highest and best of themselves, and with some humility and humanity, and to learn the power of selfless service. So your heart longs to heal humanity on every level, and yet the 9 is this super powerful vortex of otherworldly energy, so that can show up in all kinds of ways. The 9 itself in numerology contains all of the attributes and which means all of the positives and the challenges of all the numbers. So with this as your soul urge, highly creative, quirky, charismatic, individualistic in that way. And yet it is up to you with that 9 soul urge to figure out how you're going to express that. And I would look very directly at your life path number and see that you're going to be infusing your heart and soul into whatever it is you're doing through your, as indicated as the pathway indicated by your life path, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So, but it's got to be really speaking to your heart and soul. It's about expressing universal wisdom, helping, healing the planet, humanity, whatever you're drawn to that you feel very passionate, very strongly about in that way is really a core indicator of how you're meant to pursue your life path. So the opposing forces here, you can the 9 when it shows up can often be very belligerent. I'm going to do things the way I want because I'm very passionate about it, but I'm just going to mow everyone down as I get there, right? So that can be an opposing force. And also the 9 can be very much the giver and very taken advantage of in life. And so again, it is the number of loss, of letting go, of completion, surrender, forgiveness, all of those beautiful elements, and yet they need to be balanced so that you are not taken advantage of by others. So, all right, those are our soul urge numbers. And just as a quick encapsulation, the soul urge indicates what you need down deep in order to feel the most satisfied and gratified in your life, down deep. This is the pathway for your soul's most expansive growth. And this is the underlying driver for what you do in your life.